the community manager down in Calgary, and Amber Rowden, our storyteller here in Rainforest Calgary, will be starting us off. And we have the Edmonton Steering Committee members who can give a wave. Gail will be doing intro with us today. Our guest speaker, Christiana, is a former Rainforest Steering Committee member up in Edmonton. So welcome to all. If you're new, welcome. We're happy to have you join us. Please feel free to share who you are in the chat so that we can connect there and later in our networking. So back to you, Amber.
Thank you so much, Bridget. All right, so in the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge that we live, work, and play on the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Siksika, the Kainai, the Piikani, the Tsuut'ina, the Stoney Nakoda Nations, the Métis Nation, Region 3, and all people who make their homes in the Treaty 7 region of Southern Alberta. For those in the Edmonton area, we acknowledge the traditional lands of the Treaty 6 territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, Nakota Sioux, as well as the Métis. These sacred gathering places provide us with an opportunity to engage in and demonstrate leadership on reconciliation. Thank you for your enthusiasm and commitment to joining Rainforest Alberta in doing so. If you are from somewhere that's not Calgary or Edmonton, please feel free to share your own land acknowledgement in the chat as well. Now I'll pass it on to our co-host, Gail, to share with us about the rainforest.
Excellent. Thank you, Amber and Bridget, and welcome everyone to the Rainforest Lunch Without Lunch every Wednesday. I'm really pleased to have this dedicated group on this call. We're innovators, doers, dreamers, connectors, and builders, building this thriving community that has the analogy to the rainforest, where all the right elements are together to create a thriving ecosystem. Go to the next slide, please. And we will play the video or not. Please go ahead. Thank you. Is the audio working? Okay.
Stand by for technical difficulties.
Good.
All right.
What does it take to realize an idea or for a seed to sprout? At Rainforest Alberta, we know the answer is rooted in trust. Traditionally, Albertans have cultivated their ideas in established systems. Inputs that don't fit these systems are weeded out. Opportunities for growth are missed. But now, Albertans want a dynamic landscape that can evolve organically, like a rainforest. At Rainforest Alberta, we believe a culture of trust is the fertile soil where ideas grow. Our budding innovation ecosystem is a network of relationships pulling each other up as they push forward in their own field. Trust breaks down barriers. An open, inclusive network increases collaborative innovation. Successful breakthroughs inspire new ideas. A cycle begins. Rainforest Alberta is a movement to amplify trust by cultivating honesty, inclusion, and accountability. How? Our social contract holds us accountable to demonstrate trust across the province. We meet to have honest conversations around collaboration. This leads to more inclusive spaces for everyone to fearlessly build new ideas together. By raising the standard of trust, Alberta's ideas, talent, and resources can be evergreen. Visit rainforestab.ca to sign the social contract and start growing together.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Amber. So the 6 pillars to guide our conversations and actions are not all weighted equally. Very high on the culture and the leadership side, but also important, of course, are resources, engaged activities, policy and infrastructures, and role models. As Bridget has put in the chat, if you haven't signed the social contract, please check it out there in the link provided. And then, of course, all these pillars are measured each year through our scorecard assessment, where we have annual summits, and the community gives us feedback on how things have progressed and ideas on how to do better in future years. Next slide. Tips to making the most of this session, Lunch Without Lunch. Please do feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. connect with individuals through direct messaging. Please put your camera on. We want to get to know everyone, and feel free to ask questions, although we will let our speaker present, and then most of the questions will be asked later, but I think you'll sense from the tone whether there's an opportunity to ask questions in between slides or points. Please do keep connecting on the Rainforest Slack workspace, and check out the lunch notes for a capture of today's chat, and recordings are posted on YouTube. So with that, I will turn it over to Bridget, who will introduce Christiana. Over to you, Bridget.
Thanks. Amber's going to have the honors today, so I'll pass it over to Amber.
Thanks, Bridget. Thanks, Gail. So I'm very excited to introduce Christiana, who will be sharing with us the Start Alberta Platform. So Christiana is Director of Industry Development and Investment Associate with Alberta Enterprise, where she strives to develop the venture capital and tech industry in Alberta and invest in high-quality venture capital funds. She is the interim executive director with the Start Alberta Deal Flow Platform, a database that connects startups with investors and provides an ecosystem hub for Alberta tech activity. Prior to joining Alberta Enterprise, Christiana was part of the inaugural Creative Destructive Lab, Rocky's cohort, and was a member of the Rainforest Edmonton Steering Committee. She is currently a member of the C100 48 Hours in the Valley Selection Committee, the Canadian Venture Capital Association Data Committee, and is also a VMSA mentor. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to our very special guest, Christiana.
Hi, everyone. Oh, it's always so awkward to be introduced like that. But thank you very much for the kind introduction. I really appreciate it. And also thank you very much for having me here today. So we did touch upon Start Alberta, but maybe I'll just cover it a little bit, provide a bit of an introduction so you have the context. And then after that, I will share my screen and I'll run you all through a little bit of a demo just to familiarize all of you with some of the functionalities of the platform, because at the end of the day, we'd really like for all of you to use it and leverage all the tools at your disposal as part of this solution that we've brought into the ecosystem. So for context, as mentioned, I work with Alberta Enterprise Corporation. And Alberta Enterprise is a fund of funds. We manage about $350 million in assets provided to us by the provincial government. And what we do with those funds is we make investments into venture capital funds. And those funds can originally be from all across North America, Silicon Valley, Toronto, major tech hubs chiefly. But through our investment, they come to Alberta and they establish an office here in the province. And they also employ a full-time senior investment professional who then becomes active in our tech ecosystem, looking for startups to invest that money back into. So really, we're here to create better access to capital for Alberta startups. And so what we noticed a couple of years back is that it's very difficult for startups, especially at the early stages, to find investors who would be suitable to invest in their startup. And we also know that here in Alberta, you always say it's kind of like a big, small town, but even the investor ecosystem is very network-based. And so we wanted to make that more transparent and put all startups on an even playing field to make it easier for them to find capital and to talk to investors and to get mentorship. And also to better navigate all the different service provider resources that are available to them here. But as we've heard for a long time, it can be difficult for startups who are new to the ecosystem to figure out where to start. And so we decided it would be a good idea to create an ecosystem hub, but also a database of startups and investors to just make that process a whole lot easier for the ecosystem locally, but also to make it easier for investors from outside of Alberta to actually find deal flow to invest into. So through this process, Alberta Enterprise was a founding partner. We also brought the A100 to the table, who many of you may know about, and the Venture Capital Association of Alberta and all of their members to the table. And then we created like an ecosystem task force of all different service providers, the eRIN Common Portal Subcommittee, all these different folks who at the end of the day were very representative of the whole ecosystem. We did a lot of interviews with startups, a lot of interviews with investors to try and figure out what this solution should become and what it should be able to do for us. So from that, we had created a prototype of startalberta.com. And then in June, mid-June of this year, we completely refreshed the platform, we totally revitalized it. And now it has a lot more really exciting capabilities and can do way more than it ever could before and even more than we could have imagined. So with that, how about I share my screen and I'll walk you through some of the different functionalities that might interest you as a startup or an investor or just a general community member coming to use this deal flow platform, which is what we're calling it. So if you go to ecosystem.startalberta.ca, you will get access to the platform. It's free to use for anyone. So anyone can go, they can sign up, make a profile. I'll start with the homepage. You can also go to the Start Alberta website and it will also direct you here. So easy to remember. There's a couple ways, and I would also encourage you to follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn. We're always posting about the ecosystem and what's going on, so you can also follow along with us that way. But so from here, you can see the startup count, the startups that we have active on the platform, number of investment rounds, also the number of jobs, investors, etc. Here's an overview of how you can get involved, but also some additional resources of where the data comes from, just kind of like general information, glossary terms, things like that. And then you can see the founding partners we've brought to the table in order to make this initiative possible. And these folks are from all across Alberta, so it very much is like a provincial initiative. So if we go to the dashboard here, you can see that there's actually a little heat map, as we would call it. So you can see stats Alberta-wide, but you can also click on either one, Calgary, Edmonton, but we also have Red Deer, we have other smaller areas as their ecosystems become more active. And that actually is a focus of ours to engage some of the more rural ecosystems. But please be patient with us as we just did launch this a couple months ago, so we're still trying to get everyone involved. But yeah, so you can take a look at hot startups, hot scale-ups, recent rounds of funding, if that's something you're interested in, new companies that have just emerged in the ecosystem. I'm sorry, there's of course a leaf blower outside my window at this exact moment, so I'm sorry if it's, can you not hear me? Sorry. I'll try and talk more loudly. There's a leaf blower outside my window. Dale, how's the staff?
We can barely hear you at all right now, Christiana.
I'll just go ask it. Sorry.
While Christiana steps away, I think you can all hear me. We also have a link to Start Alberta portal on the Rainforest website, so you can access it through there as well. Hands up, virtual hands up if you've already made a profile on the Start Alberta platform. Ooh, Al has. Oh, yeah, we've got a few takers. Awesome, that's great. Feel free to go ahead and do so as you follow along today.
Hi, everyone. I have returned. Sorry, he's moved to the other side of the building, so hopefully it's not as bad. So I see some hands raised. Are those questions?
No, we're just asking who had already created a profile.
Oh, awesome. Great, yeah. So I'll get into that too, but definitely if you're a startup, if you're an investor, even if you run an organization or a part of an organization that is related to the startup ecosystem, we would very much recommend you to make a profile. Okay, so just going through this a little bit, this is just a really good dashboard view of everything all in one place, kind of the high level information summary about our ecosystem. If you click on Calgary or click on Edmonton, you'll see that the stats change. And they're also constantly being updated in real time. So something to mention here is that we have retained a startup called Deal Room, who provides this underlying platform that we have tailored to Alberta. So they have a team of researchers and data scientists who are both manually combing the ecosystem for new startups, new investment rounds, new investors, et cetera, and updating the platform. But they also rely upon, of course, all of us to create profiles and update our profiles. And then we also have a group of moderators who are mostly investor members, but also service providers who can actually go and update profiles if they know that some of the information is out of date and things like that. So it is really a community method of keeping all this information updated. So moving on to curated content, and sorry, my looks like my laptop's a little bit slow. But the curated content section really is pretty amazing when you can see it. It has all different, there we go, all different pre-made searches where you can get more familiar with what's going on in the ecosystem. And if you have a startup, it's very possible that you are part of some of these searches, right? So you can see that Jeff Bell with Edmonton Global has been super active in running some of these really exciting searches to get different perspectives on Edmonton's ecosystem. So you can see Edmonton gaming and media startups, you can see clean tech startups, AI related startups, etc. And any person can go and create a search like this, and it will continue to update in real time as startups come into the ecosystem that fit that search criteria. They will get added to the list. So it's pretty exciting. And if we were to, for instance, click on one of these spotlights, there's different ways that you can look at it. So you can look at them in list view, and you can see all these underlying startups underneath. Or you can put it into like more individual card view. You can export this to a report, like all these things that economic development people are doing all the time to try and figure out what's going on in our ecosystem. They can now run a really quick search and can see this shown in a really attractive visual format. So if you go to the startups in the ecosystem tab, so startups and scale-ups, you can see all the different types of searches that you can make. So if you wanted to see startups in Edmonton specifically, you could add that as a filter, and then it would update for you nicely here. You could see some kind of high-level stats about those underlying startups. And then really you can segment in any kind of way that you want. So you can see, what types of jobs they're hiring for. You can filter based on where they're headquartered, the age of the company, when they launched, the size of the company, how many employees they have, the valuation of that company. It goes on and on. It's also quite exciting that you can filter based on whether the startups are female founded. So we can actually see how many startups we have that are female founded. And then we also actually get more into the ethnicity of the founder as well. So for people who are, trying to better understand how many Indigenous founders we have, how many Black founders we have, and to try and actually influence change in those areas, it's useful for us to have starting points and to understand that data a little bit better. And if you're interested, we also are connected to the UN sustainability goals. So you can take a look at some of these ESG related impacts as well, and which startups are working in those spaces. So you can get quite granular with this information. If you're a startup, you could also take a look at maybe what other startups are seen as your competitors across Alberta, check on what they're doing, or maybe what startups you could collaborate with. that maybe have like a particular tech focus that would be advantageous for you, etc.
Christiana, we have a couple of questions on the chat. I'm not sure if you want to take them later or not, but it's more the companies want to understand how they get added in. I know you talked about that company that's curating or helping with the data, and then how is it kept current?
Yes. So how about we click on one and I can show you a little bit more. So any startup, like if we know about you or if you're active in the ecosystem, it's possible that you already have a profile created, which Deal Room just created for you, a very basic profile based on your company name, your URL, and they used automatic scrapers to kind of aggregate information from your website or press releases, etc., to try and populate your profile. So it's possible you already have one. So if you go on and take a look, you can actually claim your profile and you can very quickly make an account and it will link your account to your company's profile. And then from there, it's very straightforward to edit your profile. And if you take a look at Samdesk here, you can see that they did claim their profile because it's got that check mark, and then that they have been adding information to it. So, it talks a lot more about their growth in terms of their employee count, their launch date, how many people they employ. It has all their previous rounds listed here as well. Recent news gets aggregated here. They can add team members, they can add their location. They can even go a step further and add like their pitch deck, for instance, if they're looking to raise funding, and some different tags that would make it easier for investors to find them. Yeah.
So that's great, Christiana. So if people claim their listing, they can put in as much or as little information as they like, right?
You sure can.
Excellent.
Yep. Yeah. And let me look at the chat here because there's so many questions that I did not see. So, okay. Let me see. Okay, how do new companies get added? So it's a mixture of Deal Room and also moderators adding them, and also just startups going on there themselves and adding themselves. Okay, I am curious, is NACO? Okay. Yeah, so we do coordinate with NACO. So actually, Start Alberta provided the information for the NACO Alberta Investment Spotlight in their past report. So we are already collaborating with NACO. If you take a look at the report, you can see there's a little feature on Start Alberta as well. So we're definitely looking at ways that we can collaborate going forward. I can definitely see that Start Alberta will be a valuable deal flow source for some angel investors, and we've gotten that feedback from investors like the Accelerator Fund, et cetera, that Start Alberta and Startup TNT are both two really, really valuable sources of deal flow for them. So we'll have to continue to explore what that can look like. Okay. Yeah, so in terms of how the data stays up to date, as I said, so it's a variety of different methods, both manual curation, Deal Room curating it themselves, also the algorithms that they've created to scrape the ecosystem. So, I mean, they have a variety of news publications that are startup oriented that they scrape, looking for investment raises, looking for, announcements about new customers, things like that. We also provide the information as Alberta Enterprise, the A100, and the VCAA, along with all the other service providers who we have at the table. And then in addition to that, they actually pull from like Alberta registries and things like that. So they're also integrated with like broader systems. And then of course, startups and investors can also hit their own profile, but we try to make it easy. And it's a pretty sophisticated tool. They do a really good job. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, so there is an Accelerator and Incubator section. So I can show you here. So similarly, much of this has been populated, and they can go in and they can claim their accounts. They can talk about their investments and alumni companies. I would say the accelerators and incubators tab could be a little bit more robust. It's not as much what we've been focusing on over the last couple months, but we have all those kind of same capabilities as we do with startup profiles. And in terms of how we're coordinated with them, you know, it was, Gail can attest to this, but like getting Start Alberta going really was like a 2-year consultative arrangement of task forces and surveys of the ecosystem and bringing in all these service provider partners and accelerator partners to kind of map what this solution should become. So we really do have the buy-in from the ecosystem. You know, most of them are our partners who contribute to the financial sustainability of the platform as well. And they also serve as part of our advisory board. So we continue to get that feedback from all the different partners about the direction that this should go in. Okay, were there any other questions right now that I missed?
I think that covers most of them. Go right ahead.
Okay, okay, so I'll try to keep a fast pace here. Okay, so another great thing, which I think could be interesting to people in this room, is that there are hundreds and hundreds of active tech industry jobs on here. So they get aggregated from a variety of different places. And they, of course, are being updated all the time. They're being pulled from job sites, but also those company websites. So definitely encourage you to take a look if you're a job seeker, because it's a great way to get integrated into this ecosystem. Okay, so maybe I'll just pop over to the investor tab. So similarly to how you could search for startups and scale-ups, you can also do that with investors local here in Alberta. So all of the institutional funders like venture capital funds and also angel funds here have a profile, and you can go and learn more about, you know, the types of deal size that they technically play in. Like you can look more into their industry and stage focus. You can also look at who some of their underlying portfolio companies are. So if we click on Innovia Capital, we know that they have an office here in Alberta. You can see their notable investments, right? You can also see their portfolio, who their team members are, etc. And you can reach out to some of these folks. You know, you can find them on LinkedIn, etc. Maybe try and get a warm introduction to some of them. That would be a good way to go about it. Okay, what else can I show you? I think a pretty interesting tab for most people who are in the ecosystem would be the matching tool. So this tool allows a startup, again, it's completely free, anyone can access this, but so you can go on, you can put your profile in here, and then you can focus upon the round that you want to raise. So for Sam, they just raised a Series A, so Series B would be what they'd be looking at. Let's say they're open to any investor type, and let's say they're looking at raising $20 million, and then find investor matches. So this isn't just local Alberta investors, this is investors from around the world. So 13,000 investor matches. So clearly that is a lot, and it would be pretty overwhelming to look through all of them. But I mean, it's completely up to you. You can scroll, you can heart any of these investors. And when you do that, once you make a profile, you can actually create lists that will be updated and you can get notifications about. So let's say, I don't know, you wanted to make a list of local Alberta investors who would be a fit for you. You can make a list called local Alberta investors. You can heart, you know, all those different investors that we just focused on. And then whenever those investors have an update, you can choose how often you want to be notified about them, which is pretty interesting. And same with these investors, you can do the same thing. So yeah, it's pretty cool. And I mean, without this tool, a startup would have to go to an investor or a service provider that might have a subscription to like Crunchbase or PitchBook, and they'd have to ask them a favor. Oh, could you, run a list of potential investors for me? Now any startup can navigate this themselves, and they can educate themselves and come to those investor conversations knowing more about the investment thesis of those investors, right? And knowing that they actually are a fit based on their portfolio. Yeah. So, like I would say that that's a pretty good overview of the Start Alberta platform in general. As I mentioned, I would definitely encourage you to make a profile. If you have any issues with that, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'll put my email in the chat here. And we have a support team that will help you out with any of your questions. And also keep an eye out because the Start Alberta Tech Awards are coming up soon. However, we have chosen to move from being in person because of the current situation. But instead, we're going to be announcing the winners in kind of like a drip format, one winner a day, starting November 8th. So take a look at our Twitter and our LinkedIn. You can take a look at who we're celebrating in the Alberta ecosystem. It's early stage startups, it's early stage investors and ecosystem builders, but also some of the biggest companies that we have in our ecosystem who have exited or raised a really big round. So take a look out for that. And we hope you keep involved with Start Alberta. And yeah, we hope the tool is useful to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Christiana. So no virtual award ceremony then this year? No. Okay.
So no virtual ceremony. We still want to make sure that we recognize and we celebrate all these winners in a timely way, right? Because we know people are raising money and people are bringing on new customers and things happen so quickly in our ecosystem. So we are still going to, select the winners. We're doing that this week. They're going to film like a video, and then we're going to be announcing who they are the weeks of November 8th and then the next week after that. And then in terms of an actual celebration, we're just going to defer it to an in-person event, but when it's safe to meet again. So it will be in Edmonton though. It will be an Edmonton-based party when we are able to do so.
Awesome. That'll be fun when it's doable. Thanks for all the info. Brent, I think you had one other question. Do you want to unmute and ask that question, and we'll start queuing up the breakout rooms? And sorry, the poll was launched very late there, but thanks for filling that out too. Go ahead, Brent.
For sure, thanks. Excellent presentation. Thank you so much. I'm curious, so many entities within Alberta, and I mentioned NACO and I mentioned accelerators. I'm curious also, like the Innovate Edmonton, they started up a database because they wanted to capture more than just tech organizations. Is there sort of a pull to get more than tech companies, or do you think that's where sort of the focus will be for Start Alberta?
So Start Alberta is definitely more tech focused. That being said, we do have consumer oriented businesses, D2C, things like that. I would say the criteria for Start Alberta is any venture that has potential to be venture backable. So it really is kind of a venture capital, angel investment focused site. But as long as it's the type of business who would fit the criteria for venture funding, then it's a fit for Start Alberta. Yeah. And
Perfect.
I mean, yeah, and the other thing I would say is that in terms of some of the other platforms, I mean, there's lots of different reasons to create platforms. And so we're all for that. And we are collaborating with a variety of these different entities. Another really cool thing about Start Alberta and how it kind of fits into the broader ecosystem is that any search or tab or perspective on the database itself can actually be displayed on a partner's website via an iframe. So for instance, like Edmonton Global, Innovate Edmonton, Platform Calgary, Health City, CED, they are all showcasing a different view of Start Alberta on their own website to tell their own stories around data, right? So Calgary wants to talk about how many Calgary startups there are and how much funding they've raised. Edmonton wants to talk about the same for Edmonton. Health City wants to talk about all the health tech startups in Alberta, right? So through the magic of this database, we're able to showcase that view for them, tailored to their needs on their website. And it all points back to this database and this single source of truth. So it is very collaborative in the sense that it enables all of them to tell their story without having to create a whole other platform that's fit that one purpose.
I think that's so perfect. Thanks so much. I attended the Unity for Humanity conference on Tuesday, yesterday, and they were talking about AR/VR for pretty much every organization. They had agritech, they had engineering companies, they had plumbing companies, electrical, everything, right? And just how that capability. So I'm not sure there's a company that you wouldn't have some influence with venture capital towards.
Exactly.
So Christiana, I know this has been years worth of effort, and it's so exciting that it has such a great critical mass right now, and it'll only get better by more people contributing. So call out to everyone to contribute to the database, to claim and start your own application or listing. And then do you have any other asks of the rainforest? And I will give you a little bit of feedback. What I have heard from a ecosystem builder is that as their companies talk to investors, they have heard more traction when they talk to international investors that they're an Alberta company. That is a very positive, taken very positively, and I feel it's because of the AEC component that can help make investment easy in Alberta. So back to you.
Thank you. Well, that's so nice of you to say. And I mean, yeah, like, I don't know, I can't speak to if it's easier to get international investment or local investment. I think that's a hot topic. And I think it depends upon capital constraints and things like that. I mean, there are some international investors that have very deep pockets, and the investment landscape in other hotter markets is that some people aren't even doing due diligence. It's like investors decide on an investment, and then like a week later they're making that investment. So it really depends what ecosystem you're in. But I can say from AEC's standpoint and the work that we have done making investments and also in the ecosystem, we see a huge amount of interest in Alberta. And we're getting a lot of inbound interest from funds all around the world asking what's going on in Alberta, how can we get more involved? You know, show me your AI companies, show me your clean tech companies, right? And these are questions that we've gotten for years. So that's another selfish reason why we wanted to create Start Alberta. So we could just say, hey, it's all here. Why don't you take a look at the database and you can do that search for yourself and you can reach out to these companies, right? So I think that's the ask, right? Like if we point people there, they can get the answers they need. They can explore the ecosystem. And who knows, invest here, relocate here, all those good things.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Bridget?
Yeah, great. Okay, thank you all for the engaged discussion. It's wonderful. We are going to move into some networking time, breakout rooms. I'll just end this poll here and I'll share the results with you in case you're curious. Looks like everyone wants to stay virtual, so that is interesting. Great. I think Amber's got our breakout rooms queued up, so we'll do a couple of those and come back at 5:02 for community announcements. So if you have those, please get them ready for the end of the hour. So Amber, if you want to fire off those breakout rooms, we'll go and chat.
Welcome back, everyone. Seems like you guys are having a lot of fun in there.
Yes.
Glad I missed out.
Good luck on that, Carrie. I'll just throw that out there. Good luck. Okay, sorry, Amber, you go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. Big thank you to Christiana for being here today and sharing Start Alberta with us and how to use the platform. I just want to do a quick announcement. Stay tuned for the link for this. We're just getting it worked out, but we'll have the podcast awards November 16th at 4:30 p.m. So please join us for that. It's going to be a lot of fun. Bridget, is there anything that I'm missing?
No, other than like I'll put in the chat again about the podcast. If you want to take part, if you're newer to the rainforest, Al Del Degan spearheads the Libby podcast, and contact him or Amber or I if you want to take part. Like and not often that you can just like jump on a software and host a podcast with 100 plus subscribe. What are we at for subscribers, Al?
Oh, it's over 100 for sure. We've
Yeah.
had 15,000 downloads out of all the shows mixed together.
So yeah, if you want to like try your hand at being a host, or you have a suggestion for a cool guest to be featured, let us know. And Gail has an announcement.
Right, Rainforest Connector next Tuesday. It's always the third Tuesday of the month, 4 p.m. Topic is marketing technologies and companies in Alberta. So in fact, we have like the tipping point. We have the marketer, the connector, and the salesman. And actually, salesman is Bitwide from Calgary, Sean Baldwin, and then the other two companies are Cross Alberta, there's Bubble Up, and Lono. So more to come next week. And I see something from Patrick. It's surprisingly fun to be a podcast. So it's a good pitch, Patrick. Ross has something to add.
Oh, I just have my bit for sharing. So is that all for you, Gail? Okay. Just a reminder, the Civic Tech YYC election survey is still going on. I know I'm also collecting people who might be interested in using that open data to create basically an equivalent of Vote Compass for civic elections. Right now with Civic Tech YYC, which by the way, we meet every month on the second Tuesday of every month. I'm hoping to network with other Civic Tech YYC or Civic Tech groups across Canada to help develop that app so that we could use it across different cities across the whole country.
Very cool. Tracy?
Oh, hi. Yeah. I'm Tracy Martell. I used to attend Rainforest. I took a leave of absence, but now I'm back. And hi, I'm with ICTC, Information and Communications Technology Council. I'm in a different role now, but we have a program right now for Alberta businesses. It's called TADE, Talent Acquisition for the Digital Economy. And it's a free program that offers HR tools to Alberta businesses. And we're also having 2 mini virtual career fairs. The first one's October 28th, and we're going to have registration open for job seekers next week. But I have in the chat, I have included the link to our registration form for employers and our email address. So if you're interested in that or want to come and download our HR toolkit, please follow that link, and thank you very much.
Thanks, Tracy. We'll check it out. We are at the top of the hour, so thank you everybody for joining us. We do keep the room open if you'd like to continue and chat. We will see you all next week, where we will return to our series of checking out startups and entrepreneurs, a series we started in the summer and have been continuing on. This was just a bit of a break to show you the Start Alberta portal. Next week, is it Medo.ai, not Medo, right? .ai. And then Pixel Tree. We were just talking about this in our breakout room. If you're a junior dev and looking for an all-inclusive potential workplace, Pixel Tree is going to share what they do the following week to round out October. So have a great week all,